So here I am in Chester Blandford State Forest on a trail called the H. Newman Marsh Trail. It's a beautiful trail with wonderful overlooks of the Westfield River. And I found this beautiful spring ephemeral here. This is Trout Lily. It's named because of the speckling of its leaves that some people believe reminds them of trout. Sometimes it's also called Fawn Lily because same thing, the speckling of a fawn. And sometimes it's even called dogtooth violet. We'll get to that in a minute, but it's not really a violet at all. It is a lily, which means its flowering parts come in groups of 3. So it has 3 sepals. Those are the modified leaves that cover the flowering bud before it opens. It has 3 petals, the attractants for insects. And then its head hangs because it likes to attract flying insects. Flying insects are better for this plant because they'll travel further and cross-pollinate plants that are 50 or 100 yards away, where a crawling insect might only go from 1 to 2 feet from the original plant. So when the plant is ready to pollinate, when it's warmed up enough, it'll recurve or bend back those sepals and petals, and it'll expose 6 stamens and a 3-parted pistil. Again, a lily, so groups of 3. The insects will fly in, they'll gather the pollen and the nectar, and then they'll fly off. Now, the reason we don't want crawling insects is because this plant here and these leaves over here, which are vegetative but not flowering, could be genetically the same plant. In fact, there's some flowers right nearby, and they also might be genetically the same plant. As a spring ephemeral, the flower is taking a lot of risk blooming at this time. Today we had a frost warning this morning. Now, up on this hillside, it's less likely that they'll get a frost, but the frost could kill the plant. Okay? But it could also kill the pollinators, which might therefore not be able to cross-pollinate the plant. So there's a lot of risks. So to hedge their bets, there is an underground stem called a rhizome, which connects this flowering plant with maybe these vegetative leaves over here. And although this plant could die or not get pollinated this year, the vegetative leaves are going to gather nutrients so that the plant can try it again next year. So these plants these different leaves might actually be from the same plant. The plant will send out this rhizome, and eventually at every node it'll produce a leaf. But it'll also produce this thing called a corm, which is an underground storage device which looks a lot like a dog tooth, and therefore dogtooth violet. It's white, it's pointy, we call it dogtooth violet, but you'd have to dig up the plant to see that. So at that corm, the corm is going to store energy, and when enough energy has been stored, the flowering or reproductive leaves will come up, and we'll get a flower. In the meantime, that rhizome might only last a few years, and then it'll wither and die, separating these leaves from this plant. But genetically, again, they're still the same. So to create diversity in the population, we need flowers occasionally, and those flowers need to transfer their pollen further away than all these plants right here, which might be clones of each other. And so we attract the flying insects as their pollinators. I'm Tom for True Naturalists.